The African Union Executive Council of Ministers meeting has agreed that migration has become a challenge on the continent. The gathering has just concluded in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with a proposal that a comprehensive discussion on this issue is held at one of the leaders' meetings taking place in Egypt later this year. Attempts to put South Africa under scrutiny due to the recent anti-migrant protests were not successful. Nigeria and Ghana have been vocal in pushing for this issue to be included on the agenda of the AU Heads of State and Government Summit. The Executive Council meeting of ministers did discuss migration, and it was proposed that the issue be dealt with by leaders in a holistic manner without focusing on one country. President Cyril Ramaphosa also made a call to the Pan-African Parliament to discuss migration in a broader manner. And we stay with this particular story now and speak to Dr Kingsley Makhubela, international relations expert and former ambassador, who's joining us this evening. Good evening to you, Doc, and thank you so much for your time. I'm going to get to what's taking place in Spain in just a moment, but I want to stay with what we've just spoken about, because this is a call that you've been making for quite some time to say, do not shine the spotlight on South Africa. You need to deal with this issue holistically. Here we are.
You know, good evening, Bongiwe. The unfortunate part is that the matter is on the agenda, and it's on the agenda of the heads of state. You are not going to prevent heads of state from making references to South Africa, and you are likely to see countries divided on this issue, which would be very unfortunate to find the AU that it's unable to come up with a consensus approach on a matter that is so vital. I mean, what we are seeing going on in Soweto, it's part of the huge problem, because human trafficking and illegal migration is creating a big challenge.
So when then it comes to, the honest discussions then, because I'm listening to what you're saying. I mean, DIRCO's statement, for example, says in part that it believes that a lasting solution, to migration pressures cannot be achieved through selective approaches that single out or denigrate individual member states. And it requires honest dialogue about the push and pull factors that are driving the movement, in countries of origin, for example. So how honest then are these discussions likely to be if the heads of state themselves then would likely, just make reference to South Africa?
Bongiwe, logically, you would have seen a document that is circulating amongst member states, a discussion document that would guide the discussion of heads of state. You don't have that. So that's one starting point. The other issue is that this issue has been on the table of the summit for quite some time, and nothing has been done. All of a sudden, there is an agency to put it on the agenda of the AU. But if you listen to different communicators from within the South African government, there are conflicting communications. At one stage, it was said this might have been deferred for next time because there's no time to discuss this. I'm just paraphrasing what came out. At one stage, people were saying we're going to have a broader discussion. The Pan-African Parliament apparently has adopted a resolution that is contrary to what South Africa expects. So there's a lot of confusion around this thing, and I'm afraid, Bongiwe, the time is running out. People are hardening their position, and the unfortunate thing is that you are likely to see a serious targeting of South Africa at this summit. People will be making example about South Africa, not about the 40,000 or so on people that are crossing now, that are really running away from a variety of issues.
So, and I wonder, where has the holdup been in your view? And I ask this because I remember 2015, for example, the African Union Assembly is calling for an African migration conference to discuss, the approaches to accelerate, the issues, in fact, and also accelerate solutions around this particular migration crisis. Here we are, it's 2026. So in your view and the reading of the situation, where's the holdup?
The problem is around the two fundamental issues that you spoke about earlier, the push and the pull factor. And the push factor is so fundamental because this is what it's actually taking people out of their countries. That has to do with a certain democratic principle, the manner in which people are treated, the level of corruption that is going on around the continent, including in this country. And then you have the pull factors that actually have to do with what people perceive as greener pastures. And as a result, creating this conflict between indigenous people and migrant. And of course, in this country is a challenge of how the state has been dealing with this issue and different communications around this matter, Bongiwe. I mean, I was listening to some of the ministers who are starting to single out certain countries. I think there's no coherent communication about the problem. And that's why we don't even know if this matter is indeed on the agenda of the summit. I've seen different communications also going away from the AU. I mean, Yusuf, the other day, the AU chair, was saying there's no way that the AU can keep quiet when there are such atrocities going on against West African in South Africa. I mean, this is what you are getting, but there's no clarity. But the agenda of the summit is finally decided by heads of state on recommendation of permanent representative at the AU and ministers of foreign affairs, and eventually the summit will then adopt that after consensus. So we don't know how far is the process in terms of this matter being on the agenda or not being on the agenda.
Sure. As you say, it seems that things are moving somewhat at a pace that, as you say, really just leaves much to be desired. But as we speak, you and I are talking about the developments as well in Ceuta, right? Spain's Prime Minister rushing to diffuse what appears to be, in his view, a migrant crisis. This is after 50,000, have crossed from Morocco in a single day. And reports are suggesting that Spanish authorities said that they would try and expel those who've entered illegally and quickly as possible, despite this recent ruling by the Spain Supreme Court that migrants arriving by sea cannot be returned to Morocco. So this is a very concerning story, but also speaks about how migration should also be an issue on the global agenda as well.
It should be. If you look at the Ceuta issue, Bongiwe, the population there is about 52 million, the Spain's population. Now, if you have 52,000, if you get another 50,000 that moves into the area, you are likely to see a conflict around resources, water, basic amenities. So you're likely to see a conflict brewing in that area. So it's a disaster that Spain is trying to resolve. But what is compounding this is mixed communication that is coming from Washington in respect of this matter, because there seems to be, the U.S. government or some element of the U.S. government much more inclined to discuss the bigger problem of Ceuta. There are a lot of problems around the world that relates to this. You will recall Papua New Guinea has the same problem. You have the same problem of the Malvinas, what the Argentinians call. So they are a bigger problem in terms of territorial thing. And I'm afraid the United States is taking a shortcut in terms of making some pronouncements on this issue. The best solution in terms of this territorial dispute, it's how the Chinese handled the question of Hong Kong and Macau. That was a process, an outcome of a negotiated process, so as to avoid this kind of anarchy.
Yeah, quite a lot to talk about as far as the story is concerned, and the AU as well. But, just in the coming days, these are two stories that are also going to be in quite sharp focus once again. But appreciate your time as always. Thank you for speaking to us. Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, international relations expert and former ambassador.